What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. The DNC is finally over. You can take your gas mask off and you can throw it away because we are done with the DNC. Kamala Harris did her nomination acceptance speech night 4 of the DNC, and it was completely underwhelming. The intraweb is buzzing with how underwhelming her performance is. I'm going to share a little bit of what's happening, and I think the lefties, they are officially losing it. Media that was once biased to Kamala Harris is pointing it out, and we're seeing it more and more. I really appreciate you guys watching. Drop your comments down below.
All those who sacrificed so dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done.
Is she not aware that she is currently in office now? And they don't want to address these things because they don't want to make the existing administration look like crap. The economy is in shambles. Inflation is at an all-time high. Border crossing, it's a crazy border crisis. Crimes across the United States are skyrocketing. People can't afford houses. Middle class is getting wiped out. So there has been no talk of any of that or of her policies. The Harris and Walz camp said that they are not releasing policies. It is still not on their website. They will not release policies until she gets elected. Guys, I'm not going to share any more of the videos of Kamala Harris's speech because we don't want to eat moldy bread. We don't want to eat moldy bread. Como even initiated this and talked about her speech. The intention of the speech was to swing potential voters. And it didn't do any of that.
Yes, Kamala Harris talked about immigration, but excusing the situation of the status quo as being a function of one bill not getting allowed to pass by Trump is not going to be satisfying, not to independent voters, not for people who study the issue.
100%. 100%. Shout out to everybody watching, by the way. Drop your comments down below. Smash the like button. Shortly after the moldy bread speech was completed, Trump called into Fox News, and this is what he had to say.
Joining us now by phone, the 45th President of the United States, former President Donald Trump. Mr. President, thank you for joining us. You were truth socialing along this speech. What is your first reaction to it real time tonight?
Well, the biggest reaction is why didn't she do the things that she's complaining about? All of these things that she talked about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do everything, but she didn't do any of it. She could have done it 3.5 years ago. She could do it tonight by leaving the auditorium and going to Washington, D.C. and closing the border. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border and created the safest border we've ever had in the history of our country. She could have done all of these things, and she could still do them. She's got 4.5, 5 months left. She can go there right now. She can do all of the things, many of the things that she's talking about and complaining about. It was a lot of complaining. She didn't talk about China. She didn't talk about fracking. She didn't talk about crime. She didn't talk about 70% of our people are living in poverty. She didn't talk about housing, really. The trade deficit. She didn't talk about child trafficking that she's allowed to happen because she was the border czar and she presided over the weakest border in the history of our country. It's an invasion. I was there today, as you know, Brett. It's an invasion of our country taking place at our border, our southern border. It's a total invasion. And now it's starting at our northern border also through Canada. And she didn't talk about any of that because she talks, but she doesn't do. It's no action. But, you know, look, other than that, it was a nice looking room.
Mr. President, Martha McCallum here. She said that she is promising middle-class tax cuts, and she says that if you are elected, it will cost Americans $3,900 more a year in increased taxes. She's tying all of that to this Project 2025. That's where that number is coming from. What do you say to that?
Well, she knows I have nothing to do with Project 25. They throw it out. A group of people got together. They did a thing. I haven't even seen it. I don't want to see it. I told them specifically, I don't want to see it. People know where I stand. I lower taxes. She's raising taxes. She's going to give a tax increase of 4 to 5 times what people and companies are paying right now. The country will go into a depression if they do it. She didn't talk about interest rates. I mean, the interest rates are now getting close to record rates. People can't do business. Nobody can borrow money. People can't go to the American dream and buy a house because they can't afford the interest rates. And even if they could, the money isn't available. She didn't talk about any of that. Now, if she got in, look, she's a Marxist. She always was. She always will be. She's going to leave the border open. I was there today, and the Border Patrol, as you know, gave me total endorsements and all of that. I've gotten endorsed by almost every major police group in the United States. But she is a Marxist with open borders. She's not going to have any fracking in Pennsylvania. She's going to close down the oil and gas industry, and our country is going to go bust. She didn't talk about the $35 trillion, which I was going to start paying off with liquid gold that we have right under our feet. We were going to start paying off debt, lowering taxes still further. And, you know, she wants to raise the taxes on corporations. What they're going to do is pick up and move to another country, like the pharmaceutical industry moved to Ireland and they moved to other places. Many of these industries were just they're international companies. If she raises taxes like she wants to do on companies, there go those jobs. I'm more interested in the jobs than the companies. But there go those jobs. And what's going to happen, Martha, they're going to pick up. They're going to move to another country. They're going to pick up and move to another country where they're going to be promised taxes at half the numbers that she's talking about and more than that.
Mr. President, on the issue of immigration, Vice President Harris, like many Democrats in this hall throughout this week, have used the bipartisan Senate bill and your efforts to lobby Republicans not to move forward with that, to use the issue in this election as part of this speech. She said she will sign that bipartisan bill. She, to your point, doesn't talk about executive orders that could have been launched in the beginning of the Biden administration. But how do you respond to that? And are you ready to debate Kamala Harris on September 10th, given what you heard tonight?
Well, number one debate on September 4th at Fox, and she turned it down because, as you know, Brett, I was willing to debate with you and Martha. I was going to debate on September 4th. She turned it down. And I'm willing to debate on, I don't like ABC. I think ABC is probably the worst of the group, but I'm willing to do ABC. I was willing to do CNN with Joe Biden, and you saw what happened there. I mean, CNN does not treat me or Republicans very good, but I was willing to do it because it was the only way I could get to debate him and ask him how that turned out. But look, I am willing to debate, and I think we should do much more than one debate. But you know better than anybody, I'm ready, willing, and able because I told you yes, and she turned you down.
And on the immigration issue?
On the immigration, it's very simple. The bill was horrible. It would have allowed millions of people to pour into our country. Would have been horrible. It was a horrible bill. It was a joke. She doesn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I closed the border. I had the safest border in the history of our country. I closed it up. As president, now she'll have to get Joe to do it, but she could probably have a lot to do with that, right? Now Joe's missing. He's on a beach in California. But you know what? All she has to do, or all he has to do, is say, I want to close the border. The border is closed as of now. They don't need bills. They don't want to close the border. I stood at the border today in 100-degree weather, and I will tell you, it's a dangerous place. And I was being told by Secret Service and a lot of other law enforcement, sir, it's really dangerous here. I think it's time to leave. You wouldn't believe the things that I saw at that border. She's the border czar. Now she wants to deny that, but she's the border. In any event, she was in charge of the border. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border so unsafe as this one. 20 million people have poured into our country, many of them from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylum, and record number of terrorists. And other countries are releasing their prisoners from their jails. They're emptying out their jails into the United States of America because of her incompetence and her bad border policies. She is a horrible, horrible person to run this country. We won't have a country if she gets elected.
Let me ask you this, sir. There has been a huge appeal and momentum for women voters. She's trying to pull the youth vote, the Hispanic vote, the black vote back in her direction. Polls show that she's having some success in that at this point. So what are you going to do? What's your strategy to rebuild the momentum that you had with those voters?
No, she's not having success. I'm having success. I'm doing great with the Hispanic voters. I'm doing great with black men. I'm doing great with women because women want safety. They want safety. And they don't have safety when they have somebody allowing 20 million people into our country, many of them very dangerous people. No, it's only in your eyes that they have that, Martha. We're doing very well in the polls. We're leading in most of the polls. And in the swing states, we're leading in almost every one of them.
Mr. President, let me interrupt.
The auto workers are voting for me because you're not going to have an auto industry if she gets elected. They're going to all electric cars. All electric cars are going to be made in China. And you're not going to have, you literally will not have an auto industry. The United Auto Workers ought to be ashamed of themselves. They sold the workers down the tubes.
Two quick things as we wrap up here, Mr. President. Tomorrow, do you expect to be endorsed by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And are you making a specific effort in Georgia to make up, if you will, with the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp?
Well, I just saw Brian on a very good man. Did you ever hear of a man named Sean Hannity? And he was interviewed by Sean Hannity, and he was very nice, and he said he wants Trump to win, and he's going to work with me 100%, and I think we're going to have a very good relationship with Brian Kemp, and that was on just before you people went on with that speech that we just listened to.
And RFK Jr.?
It just happened. And as far as RFK, I've had a great relationship with him over the years. I respect him. He respects me. I have no idea if he's going to endorse me. I know he's got a news conference. We happen to be in the same state. Arizona will be in the same state, but in quite different parts of the state. But it's possible we will be meeting tomorrow, and we'll be discussing it. He said, look, he was treated very unfairly by the Democrats. He would have beaten Joe Biden in a Democrat primary. I have no doubt about it. And they made it absolutely impossible for him. They made it that you have to get 60, 70% of the vote just to get in. And you know what?
President.
In the end, the Democrats did the same thing to Joe Biden. They threw Joe Biden out of the party.
The continuous gaslighting from the Democratic Party is crazy. They had stated that there was going to be a special guest coming to the DNC this final night. And the result was no special guest. There was no special guest, guys. Believe it or not. Guess who was the special guest? Drop it in the chat. Guess who was the special guest?
In anticipation here and elsewhere that there may be a special guest. I am told by Democrats that Kamala Harris was their guest. They did not want a celebrity at the end of this convention to essentially compete with her. One senior advisor telling me this is a deadly serious election. And if you looked at the end of this program, having Leon Panetta come on, the former defense secretary, really presenting Vice President Harris as a plausible commander-in-chief, that is one of the reasons I'm told that there was not a celebrity performance at the end.
Continuous gaslighting. And across the intrawebs, people are talking about how underwhelming the speech was. If you guys watched the full speech, I feel sorry for you. I watched it, but you guys don't have to watch it. You don't need to watch it because it was nothing spectacular. It was one of the shortest acceptance speeches and the most underwhelming acceptance speeches that I have listened to.
Just from an objective standpoint, this speech was a dud. This speech shows, by the way, why the Democrats did not have a primary. She would have lost. This also shows, by the way, and it's a reminder of the fact that she did lose the last real Democrat primary that was held back in 2020. She lost so badly that, in fact, she didn't win one electoral vote because she had to drop out prior to even Iowa. I'm sorry, her sister gave a better speech than she did. She didn't connect with the audience very well. She spent more time, I think, talking about herself in the first, say third of her speech. The second third was all about Donald Trump. And then the final bit was honestly, she just started getting angry. Her hand kept hitting the microphone, just smacking the microphone again and again, very sloppy. Again, this is not someone who's going to spark inspiration. And by the way, this was the speech that the entire week was supposed to be working up towards, that she spent all this time working towards. I am just not sure that they did not get what they needed tonight. They really did not get it. Guys,
that was one of the worst speeches I have heard. Holy crow.
Mind you guys, she left early on a lot of nights, and she wasn't even there for Tim Walz's acceptance speech. Apparently, she was in her hotel room practicing this horrendous speech. What? Even NBC called out the lack of substance in Kamala Harris's speech.
But again, we didn't hear a whole lot about how she would be different from a Biden administration.
These are typically biased media outlets that are for the Democratic Party. And they're seeing this. They are trying to still cover up for her graciously for this coup of nomination. It has been one whole month since Kamala Harris was nominated as the Democratic nominee for president, and she hasn't done a single press interview, and she's avoiding debates.
I mean, I think it's pretty rich to hear her talking about the threat of somebody prosecuting and trying to send to jail their political opponents, because that's precisely what the Biden-Harris administration and their Justice Department has been doing to Donald Trump. But near the end of her speech, she quoted her mother, I think it was, when she said, "Show them who you are," which it actually made me laugh out loud when I was watching this, because the irony in that, what is happening in this convention is the exact opposite of that. It has been yesterday was 1 month since she became the presumed nominee when Joe Biden was forced off the stage. And in that time, she hasn't had a single interview, hasn't sat down for a single interview with you guys or anybody else. She never talks about policies. In fact, she doesn't have a policy section on her website. This was an outrageously unique convention, because what they've done, they didn't just repackage and launch somebody like a normal convention usually does. They invented a whole new person. She has never, like John Carl was just talking about, she staked out, and always through her whole career has staked out these left-wing positions, far left-wing positions, especially in the 2019 and 2020 Democratic primaries. She will never own up to those things. She is concealing her entire record, and she's being presented as a whole new person.
Comrade Kamala. Maddow even admits that Kamala Harris is basically president right now, and the things that she's saying she could do right now. Just like Trump mentioned on the phone call, she could do this stuff right now.
The way we're going to make history here is by me becoming president.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you I can be president by the fact that I basically already am president in some ways. I am vice president. I'm doing the work.
But the economy sucks. People are hurting. So do something. If you want to, if your speech is like, move forward and don't go back, you have been in office for 3.5 years. An undecided voter reacts to Kamala Harris's speech yesterday, and this is what he had to say.
She wasn't clear enough on the policies. She did speak a lot of her personal history, which was great, but I still don't feel like she's ready. I feel like more so she should wait. I don't want to per se vote for someone that is a backup.
She is a backup. She is a backup, but she's definitely not Tom Brady. She's not that. The Democratic Party basically put Joe Biden in a box and shoved him out. If we look at the time that Kamala Harris was on stage in regards of prime time, and Joe Biden was post prime time, his speech was almost at 10:30, 11 o'clock PST, I believe it was. And hers was up front. But he's been the president. Fox News hit the nail on the head with this one.
Well, Trace, I'm happy to say I'm marking myself safe from Kamala Harris's gaslighting tonight. This speech was so out of touch with the realities of the 3.5 years that she's been in office. The theme of this convention has been shape shifters and blame shifters. They have done everything to try and pass the buck about this administration that has been disastrous for the American people. 0 mentions of inflation today. 0. Over 15 mentions of Donald Trump. This is a woman, a campaign that is focused on one person, and that's Donald Trump. Talk about selfish. They're not interested in solving the problems of the American people that they've created.
Well, listen, the American people hate inflation. They hate Donald Trump. At least the Democrats do. And then you talk about Trump. You don't want to talk about inflation because that's.
She doesn't have any policies, so she can't talk about anything else. That's why she's hiding. That is why she is hiding. Guys, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this whole thing. The DNC snooze fest. It was a snooze fest. Nothing new came out of the DNC. No new policies initiated. Underwhelming speakers. More lies. It was like a lie sandwich. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Smash the like button, share, and subscribe. And as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.